Matt Whitaker, former U.S. Acting Attorney General.
This is such a great conversation about America, our future, what's going to save our republic.
We have a great football player. Matt Whitaker is here. Matt.
They tried to bury me. They didn't realize I was a seed.
It's a touchdown, Whitaker.
Former acting U.S. Attorney General.
Under President Trump.
I'm going to be an unwavering supporter of law enforcement.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice with your host, Matt Whitaker.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice. I'm your host, Matt Whitaker, back by popular demand, the one and only Kash Patel. How are you, my friend?
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me back on the program. It's great to be with you.
You know, you are, I think, at least my 3 top episodes are you over the course of the last 2 years. And I thought, I was just kind of had taken a little bit of time off and thought about this show and rebooted it. And I was just thinking who would be great to remind folks about liberty and justice. And I thought, well, the most popular guest we've ever had. So
that's very kind of you. Are you sure you didn't have to reboot your show because I was your most popular guest?
I don't know about rebooting. I just like, you know how I like consistency. I don't like missing workouts. I don't like, and this was one of those things that I decided I'd be inconsistent just so I could refresh myself. So, listen, let's get into it. There's several things I want to talk about, but as we were prepping for this show, you told me the great news that your new book, Government Gangsters, is coming out early fall. Tell me about the book, because I know it's been a labor of love, or if nothing else, another fight against the government.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We won't spend too much time on it. It's called Government Gangsters, and you can pre-order at governmentgangsters.com and Amazon. But basically, after, you and I were in the administration, it was a good idea, like you have done, written brilliant books, to put your experience together, not so people can read about it, but how we can fix government, how we can cure the deep state, how we can root out what I call the government gangsters in leadership positions like Chris Wray, Merrick Garland, Gina Haspel, Rod Rosenstein, the list goes on. And it's not a Republican or Democratic thing. I'm probably calling out more Republicans than I do Democrats. But importantly, what I say in their book, agency by agency and department by department, is this is how we fix it. It's not just personnel. There's congressional levers, there's financial levers, there's oversight letters, there's investigatory mechanisms. And I think people have fun because it sort of coats my ride through government. And, as you know, you have to submit your manuscript to government, usually a 3-month process. It took us 9 months and a federal lawsuit for the government to release my manuscript after they sent it to, 9 agencies for review, and it came back with almost no redactions, which means they just didn't want the book out. But we won. It's coming out. Government Gangsters.
What did they
Chapter
redact?
3 is online, completely free. What's that?
So what did they redact? No, I'm kidding. Chapter 3 is online and available at governmentgangsters.com.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, and we'll put a link in my show notes, and I would encourage. Most of the people that are watching the shows are already fans of yours, so I'm sure they're planning on this. And pre-order your copy; you'll get it as soon as it's available. I'm sure Kash will do some book signings as he has typically done with his other books, and that's exciting. My book, Above the Law, I think has really stood the test of time.
Only 3 books on my counter. Yours is right there.
Look at that. Well, you know what? Hopefully,
totally unplanned.
I'm trying to get motivated to write another book, but as you know, writing a book is not easy, and I'm not complaining about it. It should be hard, but at the same time, you think you need to have a story to tell. But I can't wait to read Government Gangsters. That's exciting. Since last we had you on the show, there's been a lot of silliness, especially in the federal government. And, we have this overarching effort by state and federal prosecutors to try to get Donald Trump, somebody that you and I both work for, I'm sure we both have a lot of admiration for, and, hope that he is the next and future president. But what's your analysis? I've been talking a lot on TV, and the people that go onto my website see all the hits that I'm doing and talking about this. But what's your overarching take on really, let's talk about, there's generally 4 thrusts of how they're trying to get him. There's the New York, Manhattan situation on the government records. I think even the left admits that's kind of a crap case, pardon my French. There's the Jack Smith special counsel has got two efforts, the Jan 6 effort, and then the recently indicted effort on the documents at Mar-a-Lago. And then finally, this Fulton County situation, which I can only imagine what that prosecutor is going to do. But why don't you just kind of break it down for folks and kind of tell me how you see it?
Yeah, no, look, as a former federal prosecutor like yourself, and unlike yourself as you were the top lawyer in America, the top Justice Department official, I probably tears as you more than anyone else in sorts of, it illustrates to me the two-tier system of justice is not just in the federal DOJ land. It's in the administrative process. It's in the state court system, New York and Georgia, as you highlighted, and it's in the judiciary in the federal government. And that's not anything anyone should be cheering about because it jeopardizes due process in our Constitution. And I think the common thread you have there, whether it's New York case, the Georgia case, or the Trump's federal cases, is they've created a different playing field if you are Trump or Trump affiliated. And yeah, President Trump is the target in all of these cases, but I think what he says pointedly is precise. They're coming after you. I'm just in the way. Mm-hmm. And what he's been able to do is sort of reverse catapult that and send it back out in the universe and say, look, I'm not complaining because they're charging me. I'm showing the world the uneven two-tier system of justice. And what do I mean by that? Specifically on the classified documents case, you talk about it wonderfully on Fox when I see every week, is how is it that the Presidential Records Act doesn't apply to this case? And what I focused on a while ago is maybe a little silly, but I think quite poignant. As you know, the classification system in this country didn't occur until 1951 or 2. So there were no classified documents before that. Mm-hmm. Thus, there was no ability to charge someone for unlawfully possessing classified documents. But then they did after 1952. And in this indictment, you'll notice that they did not charge President Trump with the unlawful possession of classified documents. They could have, but they didn't. And I believe that they're failing to do that is also his exoneration. So you can't have it both ways. Either he had classified documents or he didn't. And so what they did was they tried to split the baby and go back to 1917 to the National Defense Information Act, which literally says you can't have secret stuff. And we used it to prosecute sailors who swiped maps off boats and stuff like that. So that's how far back they're going. They couldn't meet the classification case because it legally doesn't exist. Presidential Records Acts apply. And now they're targeting him for some 100-year-old statute. I think people are seeing that really for what it is. Yeah.
And can we get, Kash, can we a little bit in the weeds? And I guess maybe because we're both prosecutors, but I think the proof of facts on this Espionage Act, this National Defense Information, is going to be difficult because there's a lot of hurdles. I mean, they have to show that it's national defense information within the act. Then they have to show a bunch of real mens rea things, knowledge requirements of the president. And it's not just one knowledge requirement. He has to know it was there. He has to know that he was asked to return it. And then together with what you point out, which is the Presidential Records Act, which if you read it says all documents. And, I know that there are others that are tut-tutting, including my, former replacement, that are suggesting that I guess, his argument is that nobody would have ever imagined that national defense information would have been included in a definition of all documents. But, Congress does strange things, and presidents are just different, and they're treated differently, and the way we transition power in our country, while important, is just it's handled differently. And so, we can't have a system, as you can imagine, where on, at 11:59 on January 20th, he can possess documents freely and without any impunity, and then a minute later, suddenly he's a felon, because that's really what the federal government is doing here, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I have three things there. So one, Congress writes the statutes, but the judiciary interprets the law. And luckily for us, they've done that in the Clinton sock case. Yeah. Whether you like Bill Clinton or not, he took secret recordings from the White House when he was leaving as president, and he kept these recordings in his sock drawer, hence the sock drawer case. And the federal courts ruled that after a DOJ lawsuit to get those materials for DOJ and NARA, the National Archives, a federal judge said, no, you can't ever know what is there. and he is allowed to take it. So whether it's a recording or a million documents, there's no difference under the legislation and the judicial decision there. So you have a legal issue that I think the Trump defense team is going to have to argue outside of the jury to see if this case even gets to a jury. Right. But I think when you talk about congressional stuff, and I guess we're getting geeky here, so we'll probably lose most of the
That's
audience.
what liberty and justice is all about, yeah. Kash.
As you know, Matt, you put up a brilliant point that I just thought of, and I've never heard anyone talk about it. If Congress intended to exclude national defense information from the subsequent unauthorized possession of classification act, they would have wrote it in there. They're not dumb. They do it all the time. Yeah. And so, again, you can't have it both ways. Either it is classified information or it's not. But then that argument that Bill Barr is talking about that, well, it really wasn't the intent. That's not really how Congress operates when it comes to that. They speak to it, and the latter act supersedes the former unless it says otherwise. And so that's it. It's a little bit of a nuance there, but it's an interesting point. And then you talk about intent. And I think the third thing here is, which is in the news a lot right now, is the whole Iran document thing. Okay. He's has a recording that DOJ shamefully leaked to the media when they needed to turn the narrative in the public opinion. And it says Trump is waving around documents. Now, you've been around President Trump a ton. I have as well. His humor, his ability to inject levity into difficult situations is what makes him, I think, such a great communicator. And if you listen to the recording, it's President Trump in true fashion. Talk about intent. He's just literally joking with journalists. They're all laughing and he's waving around stuff. You can hear it, you can't see it. But what bothered me as a prosecutor with that was when you read the indictment, as soon as they put it out, I was looking for the subsequent document that they levied in the charging document, but they didn't have a count of a felony count related to it. So I was like, wait a second, corpus delicti, if you killed someone and you have a murder, you need the body. If you're going to charge someone with unlawfully possessing a document, you might want to have the document. But I think what they're trying to do is come up with this ruse on intent, and of course, try it in the court of public opinion.
And that's exactly what's going on. I think the funniest thing about that leaked recording is at the end where he goes, "Could you bring us some Cokes?" I
said it was fake news because it wasn't Diet Coke, so it was a Trump knockoff. It was a Chat GPT whatever thing.
But the more interesting thing is how breathlessly the indictment was covered, and obviously it's newsy, as the folks say in the business, because no president's ever been indicted federally, for anything as serious as these charges. But it's very interesting to me, to your point, they have this, sort of how they talk about, he's talking about these secret documents. And they never connect that to any document that was charged in the 31 documents. They talk about the movement of these boxes. They never talk about what boxes the documents were in, because we don't know. And I think all of that is going to that chain of custody, that's showing, again, get over the PRA and the other hurdles they're going to have to get over. They're still going to have to do the slog. And that's why, we both tried cases. I mean, I've tried cases as a prosecutor, I've tried cases as a defense lawyer, and I know what a slog it is to just get documents admitted and to prove, the way they're going to have to prove this case. It almost seems next to impossible, even though they've pled it and everybody looks at it and goes, "Oh, there's slam dunk." It's really not, is it?
I agree with you. And again, I guess we're going in the weeds. You and I both handle national security cases. SIPA, the Classified Information Procedures Act. SIPA Section 2 and SIPA Section 6 pleadings are monsters. And what do I mean by that? If you as a prosecutor want to use a classified document or statement or recording, you have to get it cleared by the entire intelligence community before you even bring a prosecution, or at least that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you and I did. This team is suspect. I'm not sure that's what they did, but I'll get back to the Iran thing in a second and tie it together. But from a defense attorney standpoint, from a public defender who handled these types of cases, you are entitled to file your own SIPA motions to go in and get discovery that you think is going to help your client. The amount of information they're going to have to mine through, and the government is going to have to put forward, because they can't just say, "Oh, we gave you everything, it's okay." You actually have a right to go in there and look for it. And so that's going to be the challenge, though, because these defense attorneys are going to have to get very smart with what they want to ask for, because they don't know exactly what exists, right? Or exactly what the government has. But just think of this. Getting a clearance takes like 3 months. CIPA litigation takes like a year.
Yeah.
This is the biggest case in U.S. Department of Justice history, and they think they're going to have this thing wrapped up by the election. I don't think so, and I'll give you an example. They're making a big thing out of this Iran document, okay? Going back to my intel times as deputy DNI, briefing the president as you've done in person, doing the presidential daily briefing, and then connecting it to Mark Milley in a second, and my time as chief of staff at DOD, never once when I briefed the president on sensitive matters did he ever keep a copy of that classified document. It was our practice and custom to go into the Oval, brief the boss and the commander-in-chief, take the document back, log it back at headquarters, because that type of documents, anything with Iran, is some of the most sensitive collection we have. So I don't really know. I'm not saying it's impossible for him not to have it, but I don't even know how he would go about getting it if we took all those documents back. And fast forwarding from my intel days to this whole thing with Milley in the news again. Milley, the same guy that said, I'm going to call my Chinese counterpart if America attacks you. Milley, the same guy that instead of helping us prep to get out of the forever wars, was leaking to the Washington Post and sitting down for book interviews as a chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. This guy has the audacity to come out and say, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, wanted to get us into a war with Iran. What meetings were you in? I was in every one of those meetings with the chairman, the SecDef, the president, and high-level officials. Never once did President Trump say, hey, I want to get in another war. He got us out of Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan. And so the credibility there for them to inject Milley, or Milley inject himself back in the media cycle that, it's the Iran document, it's got to exist because Trump wanted to go to war. None of it actually makes credible sense, and it's not backed up by any facts. And so I called Milley out on it. I'm happy to talk about it on your show because I really haven't anywhere else. And I'm saying, where did you get this notion? And also, when we briefed the president, same practice. Anything having to do with Iran was so sensitive, we would brief him, he would read it, we'd have a conversation, and we'd take it back.
Yeah.
So where'd the document come from?
Well, let's get in the Milley thing, and I guess I'll preface that with knowing Donald Trump, how we know him. I can't imagine that he would ever want to go to war when there are many other options, including just Trump diplomacy that are possible. Our friend Rick Grinnell always talks about how the diplomats are often pushed to the side by the military, and the military is in the business of killing people and breaking things. And they're the ones that, because it's their business, they want to do their business. They want to go to war. And in my experience in Washington, D.C., that is held firm for as long, really time immemorial. The soldiers don't want peace. And I mean, the soldiers' leaders, obviously the rank and file military guys, they want to be home with their families because that's where it's safe and warm.
Yeah, and look, the defense industrial complex, in my opinion, is worse than any lobbying industry out there combined. They're the reason we're dumping $115 billion in the Ukraine. They're the reason we're on the precipice of another Afghanistan, another 20-year engagement. They're the reason we keep passing these bills and why people keep talking about warmongering actions. And of course, they're the reason that Congress passes this legislation, because they own 95% of members of the House and the Senate. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. Going to war, and look, you've been in and around war, and as have I, and we've served in all these theaters of conflicts. It is a devastating last resort. The military is supposed to create space for the diplomats to come in and end the conflict before it even starts, or if it has started, end it in quick order. That's not what you're seeing in Ukraine. And it goes back to the current National Command Authority, the president, the SecDef, the chairman. What are they out there doing? They're out there just lighting things on fire, burning taxpayer dollars, sending billions to the Ukraine, and getting the media to make them heroes for doing that, and committing. And this thing gets me, it's a lot. It's too cute by half when they say America's not in a conflict in the Ukraine. We have contractors who used to be service members who are on the ground right now and have been for months and months and months and months. And to say that we don't have Americans on the ground is just a flat out lie. Yeah. Who's training the Ukrainians on the billions of dollars of equipment? What are we sending over a manual and airleafing it in there and saying, just read pages 1 to 10 and your SAM system should work just fine? Who's maintaining this stuff? They don't have any capability to do that. And my biggest fear monetarily is Ukraine is almost as bad as Afghanistan when it comes to banking. We have no idea where this money's going. Zelensky sort of knows, and we have no idea. And so I think the military complex, the SecDef, the DOD, and this current leadership with Milley and Biden is an example of what happens when you politicize the military, when you care more about climate change and whether or not a trans person has a star on their shoulder versus just doing the mission. And I think we are so far off track. And anyone, and I'm not saying we shouldn't help the Ukrainians, but hey, we got 55,000 homeless veterans in the United States of America, 24 of which kill themselves every day. I'm all for helping them first. And if we got something left over, sure, let's give it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a topic you and I could spend a ton of time, but we have to get to Hunter Biden. We have
Who?
Because
what's that?
I never heard of the guy. I have spent a lot of time thinking and talking about this case, and I can't imagine a prosecutor blowing a statute of limitations on the most serious crimes, but that's exactly what happened in this case. And so therefore the question is, how deep does this conspiracy go?
I think what needs to happen, and I've been Congress's biggest champion, and the last week or two, I've been their biggest critic, because our only accountability platform is the House of Representatives, where Republicans have the majority. And if you rewind the clock back to the Jan 6 committee, they didn't send letters. They didn't say pretty please. They didn't give you a phone call. They didn't say, oh, we'll talk to your attorney and get back to you in a month. They just sent subpoenas and said, show up in 10 days. And if you don't, we're going to send you to DOJ for prosecution, which they did to some people and actually tried and convicted these people and requested prison sentences. I'm not saying we need to go that far. I think that's an abuse of power, but I think it's not an abuse of power for them to subpoena them. Like I woke up this morning and they were saying Comer and Jordan and Jason Smith, the three chairmen putting this whole Hunter Biden thing together, have sent a letter with a return date of July 17th to request to interview 19 witnesses. What are you doing? Issue the subpoena.
Right.
What are you talking about? We don't have time for you to roll into August recess and then not come back till the end of the year when you have to deal with the CR. And I don't think they understand that being nice and getting a good media headline doesn't work, and we don't care about that anymore. What bothers me about this is it's not that you have not credible people talking about this. In this meeting, and I analogize it to the Trump Tower meeting, where Adam Schiff and company said the Russia plot was hatched in Trump Tower. We have to subpoena everyone. And I know I personally had to interrogate all these people. And it came out to absolutely nothing and talks about adopting kids in Russia. That's literally what happened there. Here in this meeting, you have a U.S. attorney, a first assistant U.S. attorney, an FBI special agent in charge, an assistant special agent in charge, two senior IRS agents, and another lawyer. This is a credible group of people. And they're
with a
all
lot of experience in these types of
thing.
cases. Yeah.
Right. Well, everyone that's speaking is saying the same thing. We were prevented from bringing the case on Hunter Biden regarding taxes that we wanted to. We were prevented from taking investigatory steps that would have led to Joe Biden. We were prevented from utilizing supposedly these 17 recordings that exist, right? So either Merrick Garland lied under oath with Chris Wray when they said we would never obstruct this investigation and Weiss could do whatever you want, or these six people are lying. They both can't be true. And all you have to do is you get them in the seat, the six people, you subpoena them, put them under oath, boom. You can do that behind closed doors. I get that. That's fine. Then you take Garland and Wray, put them front and center of the world for everyone to see in a public hearing, and you ask them the question straight out. And then, as you know, in terms of impeachment, you just hit them with the paper and says, well, so all these guys are lying or you're lying. And the purpose of impeachment, I hate this talk about, let's impeach Joe Biden. It's completely pointless. But as you know, doing an impeachment is the bringing of charges, which will allow for the American public to see the trial and the documents and the testimony from these people. That's the purpose of it, in my opinion, to get their statements out, to get the documents out, to get the recordings out. So DOJ and FBI can't rig another presidential election, so that we, the American people, can say, we saw this, we heard this, we don't believe you, and we're voting X, instead of DOJ and FBI saying, we're never going to interfere with presidential elections, but we are when the curtains are closed.
Yeah.
And I'm sick and tired of it.
Yeah. And it's, it's hard. I mean, I think the Hunter Biden case is really the example of the two-tier system of justice. I mean, and I'm going to, because as you know, like the George Santos case. I mean, that was investigated, executed, with lightning speed. The Donald Trump special counsel,
like 3 months.
I know, and the Donald Trump special counsel on the document case was executed very quickly, even as complicated as we've talked about that case to be. And yet the Hunter Biden case for 4 years just kind of ground on. And now we know why it took so long, is because it sounds like the U.S. attorney was trying to bring charges, had credible felony tax charges to bring, which are serious. It sounds like, based on the whistleblower's most recent media appearances, Hunter Biden still owes taxes that may never even be recovered because the bar date is passed. And so, how can it be that we don't have a two-tier system of justice? And if that's the case, how do we put this genie back in the bottle? I worry the most about that.
Yeah, look, that's a question that I think has two-step answer. One is are we going to get the actual oversight from Congress that we need to shine the light on this? And so it's no longer a right-wing conspiracy. And I think more and more people are now actually being like, wait, Russiagate actually wasn't a hoax in terms of the investigation and the FBI corruption. You guys didn't lie to us then. You didn't lie to us about Gen 6. You didn't lie to us about XY, Hunter Biden's laptop, Joe Biden's bribery scheme, and the shakedowns that we're now seeing text messages on. That whole thing, we're just talking about taxes. We haven't even talked about how Hunter Biden was leveraging CCP chairman by basically putting his dad next to him and say, pay me. And this is not my words. These are his text messages. And so I don't think we're going to see a cure for that in the federal government until Donald Trump's back in the White House. But this is what I called for it on Truth Social yesterday, and I'll announce it on your show. I called for state attorney generals in Republican districts, states and districts, DAs, to prosecute Hunter Biden. Last time I checked, prostitution was illegal in like 47 states. Possessing narcotics was illegal in every state. Using firearms with narcotics was illegal in all states. And I'm just curious as to why these folks, and we know Hunter, A, traveled around the country, B, took drugs all over the place. He's admitted that. And now we know, thanks to the Senate Intel Committee report from 2 years ago, that he sent multiple payments to women across America for the purposes of prostitution and trafficking. Those are singular individual crimes. And yes, you and I as federal prosecutors know you can bring that totality together and have a pretty big sweeping federal case. But that doesn't preclude the state from bringing these charges. Yeah. So I just don't understand why they've gone so lax. I get that this federal government's not going to do it, but there's got to be one state AG or one DA out there that's going to say, nah, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Our time always goes so fast, but I have to ask you one more question. You had to have mixed emotions when Durham issued his report. I mean, you were the spear tip when it came to pushing back against the Russian collusion hoax. Mm-hmm. You and Chairman Nunes did such a great job. You issued your own report, which was accurate. You had Watermelon Head, who was lying through his teeth. He's now been censured by the House, which is just the step below expulsion. And I bet they would have expelled him if they would have had the votes. But talk to me a little bit about kind of how you feel about that, and whether you think that after the Inspector General's report and after the Durham report that the American people finally understand how egregious this was.
Well, look, I was, as you know, John Durham's biggest champion. And then when I saw that report, I became his biggest critic. And it's not an attack on him personally. I know the guy. I don't think he's a bad prosecutor. I think he's a terrific prosecutor. I just think he failed to meet the mark for the time. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that is. It wasn't like he didn't have the intellect or capacity to execute. And what I mean by that is we learned two things from the Durham report that we learned from the Russiagate investigation, which I learned. But now, politically, Donald Trump can say without equivocation, forever, the FBI unlawfully launched an operation to surveil me while I was running for president and president of the United States. That's gold. I mean, it's the truth, but it's gold. He can also say that there was never any justification to launch said investigation of me, meaning they had no basis or foundation. That's John Durham saying it. So those two things were, in my opinion, home runs in terms of getting through the media, because it finally broke through the fake news legacy media that was castigating the Russiagate investigation for 5 years. So a lot of people woke up and said, oh, wow, that actually happened. The FBI and DOJ were corrupt and biased. That's a big win in terms of exposing corruption. Here's where I come down harshly on John Durham, though. And we talked about it a little before in terms of what do you do to investigate, documents, witnesses, and stuff like that. How do you basically outline a criminal conspiracy that Comey, Priestap, McCabe, Strzok, Lisa Page, Fusion GPS, Mark Elias, all these guys, Charles Dolan, Hillary Clinton campaign people, were all involved with? He issued that conspiracy in the 3 indictments he brought. And then he didn't stick a single one of them in a grand jury. No compulsory service of process was executed by the special counsel investigating Russiagate. He literally wrote in a report, and then he would later testify about it. Oh, it was complicated. Complicated? You were the special counsel who are trying to fix the FBI and DOJ. Look at what the other special counsels are doing. I just don't understand. There's no justification in my mind to not forcibly have those guys come in and testify. And I know what he said next was, well, they didn't want to, so we just let it go. When is that the DOJ's policy? That you have an uncooperative witness, you're like, you know what, that's fine. No big deal. We'll see you later. I know. I got subpoenaed by the Trump grand jury investigation. I told them, no, I'm not going to cooperate. I'm happy to tell you the truth, but you guys aren't interested in that. And you know what they did? They took us to court, and they got the federal judge, the Chief Justice, to issue a limited immunity, which I didn't even ask for. But I raise that not because it's about me. That's the process you go through to put someone in the seat, and then you get the information out. And for him not to do that, I really, it's like going to the 1-inch line and then just saying, you know what, we're going to take a knee. Yeah, he had the opportunity to fix it, and he just came up short. Yeah,
and to summarize, because I'm good at summarizing things, it's like their special counselors are always stone cold killers that try to extend the law beyond its breaking point, as we've seen with Jack Smith's previous cases with Governor McDonnell and others that he has been slapped down because he's taken an aggressive posture on these statutes. But
I just want to jump in there. Sorry, not to cut you off, but this is a personal story that I haven't really told anyone. The deputy special counsel is a woman named Karen Gilbert. She was an AUSA in Miami when I was a federal public defender. We tried cases against each other. She had a narcotics case where she illegally authorized a wiretap of the defense attorney's phone call conversation with his investigator during the trial, and got caught. And the judge was about to basically throw her out of the Justice Department, and she resigned her post. Now we find her promoted through the ranks, running the special counsel team. And I find that fitting, since you just highlighted Jack Smith's improper conduct on the Bob McDonnell case. These are the people that are empowered to go out there and what I think is break the Constitution. I think everybody has a right to know their names and demand that they be kicked off the case because of their past history.
Good. Well, I mean, this is gold to get you on here talking about these kind of current events. We've gone way over my allotted time by my corporate overlords, which is pretty much me. But I really appreciate the time, Kash. It's good to see you. Other than the book coming out, tell everybody what you're doing and where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm at Kash on Truth Social. It's the only place at KASH. And I think this show is going to put me over 1 million. So thank you in advance, Matt Whitaker, for having me. And of course, the cashfoundation.com. All my opinions are my own, but if you go to the cashfoundation.com, we're giving away money. We are giving away money to whistleblowers. We're giving away money to kids for tuition assistance, Jan 6 people and their families, active duty soldiers, service members, defamation cases. Go to the cashfoundation.com, grab some merch, grab some swag, help support the cause. All the money goes right back out the door. Nobody has a salary on the board.
And I should have wore it today, but I have my Fight with Kash hoodie that you so generously allow me to use, and it's the right size. So
we got more for you. I'll send them your way soon. We got a whole new line of swag.
All right. Well, let's get together soon. And again, this is Liberty and Justice, and you can find everything I'm doing at whitaker.tv. Thanks for watching.